You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This week, I have another returning guest, my good friend, Mr. Matt Eich of Mule Resonator Guitars. Yes, Mule. You've probably seen them floating around the internet. A very, very, very cool brand making extremely awesome instruments, primarily out of steel. If you're not familiar, go check out Mule Resophonic Guitars on Instagram, their website, all over the interwebs. You can find examples of their incredible instruments, and there's some new stuff on the horizon that Matt talks about on Patreon. So if you want to get some sneak peek info? No, that's not right. Sure. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. What am I talking about? If you want to get some info that people have not heard about yet, then you should go over to Patreon, where for just $5 a month, you will not only get to support this show, which I appreciate very much, but you will also get access to the ad-free feed and bonus episodes like this one with my friend Matt Eich. And as we talk about on the intro to this podcast, this is obviously not the first time Matt and I have sat down. We sat down way back in the day, in the very early days of the podcast, where I got to know about him and the company was just getting started. A few years after that, we did a catch-up episode after he had made some guitars for people like Jason Momoa. You probably heard that name before. And I believe it was around that time that I actually got a Mule in the arsenal, thanks to a very good friend of mine. Really big, huge shout out to that person. You know who you are. And yeah, I thought we were way overdue for another catch-up episode because it's probably been 4 or 5 years since the last time Matt came on. And the dude did not disappoint. We had a great conversation. We talk about creativity. We talk about his other passions, including jujitsu and fly fishing and a bunch of other stuff. So if you want to know more about the company, you're going to need to probably go ahead and grab all 3 episodes and smash them all together into one big listening session. That would actually be a great way to spend an afternoon. So anyway, this one does stand on its own. Matt's a great guy. I think you're going to really like this conversation. And without further ado, let's get into this episode. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast. I'm your host, Blake, I think. I'm so confused. Today is a mess. It's my kid's birthday, and my brain is going a million miles an hour. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have returning Mr. Matt Eich from Mule Resonator Guitars. Hello,
Wait, now
sir.
You can see my wave. There it is.
I can. We're doing video this time. We didn't do video the last 2 times, so...
The technology has improved.
That's right. You're looking good, buddy.
Oh, and just as I say that, it froze up.
There we go.
Okay.
Are we back? Oh.
I think we're back. I hear you.
Okay, you gotta love that.
Nice.
If it gets weird, I'll maybe turn the video off. It will still be recording you though. So if it does that again, it'll just save us some data. But hopefully it's okay. I was just saying, you're looking good, dude. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, man. You as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little bit older and wiser than last time. I think that was probably 5 years ago.
I'm older. I don't know if wiser has factored into the equation.
I thought that just happens automatically. That's what I assumed. That was the only perk of getting older.
I hope so. I hope so.
Dang it!
I don't know. It hasn't hit yet.
It's a cruel joke.
So you've been a busy man for the last few years. Let's see. I think maybe last time we recorded was we talked about this off the air just before lockdown, maybe. And you know, all things Mule have just continued to accelerate, and more people have paid attention. Like, what's this been like for you? It seems like it's been a bit of a rocket ship.
Well, you know, I appreciate you seeing that. There's been a ton of work to do a bunch of cool things, and we've got 6 guys now, and they've just been crushing it.
Wow.
With a lot of new stuff and dealing with the COVID boom of guitars that, you know, ricocheted across the guitar industry. But honestly, like, it is busy, but the thing with the guitars and, you know, running Mule is it's like 1,000 tiny little steps every day. So it's a little bit like getting older, where it's like you don't really notice it until you put up a video from 7 years ago, and everyone in the comments is like, "Who's this young man?" And then you're like, "Oh yeah, wow, I look substantially different than I did." So so it you know, there has been a lot going on, but it's just kind of like taking one moment to moment. So, and now we've got a bunch of new stuff and about 2,600 guitars out there. So,
Wow, that's wild. I just
yeah,
realized
it's a
last
large
time we talked,
number.
I don't even think you were working with wood at all at that point. You've had some
No,
wood guitars come out now.
yeah, I think maybe the Mavis. Yeah, the Mavis was after we started talking. I think maybe I had
I'm
done
pretty
like,
sure it was like a year or so after we started
yeah,
after we did the last episode.
yeah, absolutely. So that's been the big one. Mavis has been really special. It was we want to talk about that right now. We want to get into the
Yeah,
Mavis.
let's get into it. I want to know why that happened actually more than anything, because you know, the new sound of steel was the tagline for a long time, and it still
Yeah,
kind of is, but
now the new
you're doing
sound of steel
everything
is
now.
wood. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it kind of all happened in I mean, it was a cumulative idea, but it kind of just happened one weekend where um I was trying to figure out what guitar to make. A friend of mine, Sean Verow, who's um, SV Tri Slide on Instagram. He plays slide with 3 slides, like lap style, and then he plays with 3 slides on his left hand. And so
Wild.
it's pretty wild. And so I just kind of had this idea that I couldn't just make him a resonator. How he played was so unique, and it kind of just felt like I had to make a different instrument. And so it was kind of the Mavis idea was totally one of those, like, I was in the shower and then it all came, all in one shot. And I went to work that next week and I was just like, guys, I'm taking myself out of production. Like I have to figure out this instrument. And design wise, the first one was a square neck because Sean plays on his lap. But design wise, it was kind of like this combination of little design elements of a bunch of different guitars that I like. So I like carved top Les Pauls. So, on a resonator, the top has to be flat, but the back is carved. I like old parlor guitars and like all the marquetry purfling and all of that fancy stuff. So we've got marquetry purfling. And then also I like the small body size of parlor guitars. So I made it a small body size, and it was just kind of like all of these elements came together in this one guitar. So so I made Sean the square neck and got him the square neck, and it was really fun to see what he did with it. And I posted it on Instagram, a picture of that guitar, just kind of like, hey, I did this one-off thing for this guy who plays really crazy, like not really intending it to be anything. And so I posted a picture of the square neck, and then Jason Momoa, has I think like 8 or 9 guitars by now of ours,
Oh,
saw it,
geez, I didn't know that.
and his
Wow.
yeah, he's really stocked up. So including the first round neck Mavis, because he commented on it and said need it, but with a big tort, or need it but round neck, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'll make a round neck version of this. And so I started making that round neck version, the prototype version, and I took a picture of it, and it wasn't fully assembled. There's no cover plate, no tuners, nothing on it. And I just took a picture of it and I put it online, and I said, I don't really know what this is going to be, how much it's going to cost, or what the wait time is. But if you're interested, I'll open up a wait list. And I opened up the wait list, and 100 people signed up in a week for this guitar that they hadn't even seen like fully formed yet, or I'd never heard a video clip of it. And that was really intriguing to me. Not as like a successful design thing, but just like, what is it in this guitar that so many people were willing to like, take a leap of faith on? And that was the start of the Mavis rocket ship, man. And I originally kind of told people like, hey, it sounds pretty unusual and I don't really know what you'll do with it, but that's kind of the fun of it. And it's been really cool to see where people have taken it because it's such a unique instrument. Some people pick it up. Adam Levy, he said it's like the most jazz box sounding guitar that he owns. But then you'll have someone who says like, it sounds almost like a banjo. Like I use it for, like a banjo type, whatever. And so there's such a broad spectrum of where people are like finding a cool sound with that. And that's really fun.
The whole thing you've done for your entire career has been based upon unique sounds that weren't really done. I mean, not in the way that you do them, right? Resonators were obviously a thing, but you hammered out a different way, to get to that style of sound and that kind of thing. And then the Mavis is just an evolution of that in my mind. It's like, how can I take this concept and, go even further with it? And then, you got the Mule casters. That's not really been done before, to my knowledge, before you did it. It's the whole Mule ethos.
There's been a couple.
There's
been a couple steel builders there. I think with like the different. Okay. Yeah, for sure. James Trussart's one.
That's right. I forgot about Trussart.
Yeah, great guitars. And then there's another one that that's slipping my mind. But with the instruments, it's interesting because all the guitars that we do have been done before. Just like, the guitar is very well established. I think kind of gone are the days of trying to be super innovative. Like anytime something super innovative comes out, it kind of goes into the niche category. But I think when you do something that's traditionally accepted and you give it a very different sound, and then you talk about it in a way that encourages people to explore, take this tool. It's going to be uncomfortable, but in the process of learning to be comfortable with it, you're going to learn some very valuable things that you can't learn otherwise. And I think that message is equal to the instruments itself, because traditionally what I've seen in whether it's guitar world or amp world or fishing rod world, or I was into cycling for a long time, bicycles, everyone like on the business side wants to talk best, most, fastest, loudest, boomiest, whatever, as if there's this hierarchy of things, when really it's just tools.
Right.
We're just giving people tools so that you can build whatever you want to build. And depending on what type of hammer you pick up, it's going to influence what you want to make with it. That's a totally different way of approaching an instrument. And unfortunately, I think on the business side of things, we did a poor job of expressing that. We always just want to be impressive as opposed to, actually like expressive. And I think that's been important part of it.
It's one of those things where, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's when somebody approaches you, at least like on our side with strings, like, at NAMM, it's the constant battle of people coming up and expecting us to be like, we've got this hyper metal, ultra magnetic core that does something you've never, some sort of tech spec thing that's going to blow their minds. And it's a little bit less sexy to be like, it's not just one, marketable item that we can point to that's like, oh yeah, we got this special unique alloy that no one can get but us. It's like, no, we just do like 100 things a little bit better or different than what you have experienced in the past, and that's what makes it different. And it's a tougher sell to some folks because they're so used to the new innovation or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've really been thinking about because I'm going back to Roberto Venn in 2 weeks to talk to the class. And I think what like we don't have any specs on the website. We don't have any numbers. And I've always done that since day one very intentionally, because I think as soon as we see numbers, as we see a spec sheet, as we still see a bullet point list, we kind of go into that tech mode. We're using that side of our brain. And this is a proven fact. In Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, he has a real life example of how parts of our brain can't operate at the same time. And when we see a spec sheet and I see that nut is 1 3/4, and I immediately make a judgment on whether or not that instrument's for me. Oh, I don't prefer that. So I don't know if I could, really handle a 30-second wider nut than, what I'm used to or something like that. And that's, right. and it's not like a judgment. It's just what our brain spits out. It's just, I see a number, my brain spits out a thought about whatever I'm seeing. And what I learned very early on from working with professional players was I thought they would be the most particular customers. I live on this instrument. I need it a particular way. And to a T, they were the least particular customers. They didn't know what strings they used. They didn't know different woods. It was just like, I tried to impress them with my, hey, I could do all these different things for you. And it was, I don't know anything about that stuff. You just do what you do and I'll figure it out. And that really confirmed that idea was, here's these people who make a living writing and playing songs based on emotion, based on their experience. And they're so consumed by that they don't have brain space to think, what's my action at my 12th fret? Oh, it has to be, 128th, a little bit higher. They don't think about that. They just pick up something and play it because they're just so in that mode of their brain. And I think it's really important that we try to balance that out as makers too. Is like when someone approaches us with a guitar, yeah, sure, we need to know, how to make those strings technically better than somebody else. We need to know the specs. I'm not saying that we don't. But when I go to connect with a human being, that's all heart stuff. I'm not going to go up to somebody at a party and start talking specs, right? It's like, well, how much can you bench? It's like, like that sort of thing. Like, well, how old are you? I'm this old. Like that's, that's tech stuff. And instruments are the same way. Connect with your heart stuff, not your brain stuff.
If you see me at a party, feel free to come ask about bench press. That's something I can talk about. We can discuss that if you really want to.
Cool. Oh man, I so hope I see you at a party one day. That would be so fun to hang out.
Yeah. Just come up and we can start talking about deadlifts or something. It'll be fun.
Exactly. Let's go.
But no, you're 100% right. And I think about, I was just thinking about this yesterday. The guitar that I've had the longest is like a 2003 Les Paul Special Faded. And every time I pick that guitar up, it feels like home. I've played it for so long. For a long time, it was my only electric. It was my only real guitar at that point. And it's fantastic, and I love it. And it's actually still to this day one of my best sounding guitars that I own.
Cool.
But I wouldn't spec it out like that. If I was making the specs, if I was writing everything down, hey, I want you to build me this guitar, it wouldn't be that guitar. So while it is still one of my favorites, it's got a skinny, fast neck on it. It's, you know, 2 humbuckers. I'm a little more into single coils right now. Like, on paper, it shouldn't be. But every time I pick that guitar up, I'm like, it feels like home.
Yeah.
And I look at like the rest of them that I have, and they're all just a little bit different. I say to people, I like big necks, or I like single coils, or I like whatever. It's not.
Yeah.
If you look at the stuff here, it doesn't necessarily pencil out that way. There's a 7-string over there. There's an 8-string over here. There's,
interesting.
you know, all kinds of.
It's almost
stuff.
like, so. and I think you're saying that, and I think everybody listening can relate to that, right? Is like, well, I'm a humbucker guy, but I have 3 single coil guitars too, you know. And I think sometimes we identify with a certain thing, right? I'm that guy. And with everybody, we all do it with whatever we're into. I'm this guy. I'm with these people. And when, like you noticed, in actuality, we're not really that person. We're a bunch of different things. And I think just accepting it, who we are, you know, just be like, man, I like a bunch of stuff depending on the day. One day I like chocolate ice cream. The next day I like vanilla ice cream, you know, and that, man, as musicians, is like, just have that open brain, pick up a tool, be like, I don't know how to make it sound good. Then go figure it out. And man, beautiful things come out of that.
Why I was looking around the room like that, it was like, while I was saying, I'm more of a single coil guy right now, I have way more humbucker guitars. That's why I was like,
so just ignore the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was like, almost they're like 3/4 of them are humbuckers. Like, what are you even talking about? Like,
do you have?
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Do you have a pretty like steady rotation of gear? Like, one's going out and one's coming in?
No.
You like,
it's always
get
coming
them and
in.
Stick with them. Oh, it's
yep.
That's your
never
system.
Goes out.
No, don't
never
sell
goes
it.
Out.
Keep it around. Yeah.
I mean,
getting shipping
really,
boxes is too much of a hassle.
It is. It's way too much of a hassle. I've only gotten rid of 2 guitars in my entire life. One I regret. Yeah, one I regret, and the other I don't really.
What's the one that you regret?
This is what I've talked about this on the show before, and people laugh at me. The one I regret is it was this weird Japanese short scale 4 pickup, like offset Stratocaster hybrid thing that had individual pickup selectors for each pickup. They were all microphonic, so I could scream into it and like make all these crazy noises.
The vibe,
and I was trying to quote unquote be responsible, and I traded it partial trade for my 65 Melody Maker.
Cool.
But in reality, as soon as I did it, I was like, I should just keep this guitar. I'm only getting like $250 for this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And by the time I had come to my senses, it was gone. And I still regret it, because it was like, that was such a weird, unique guitar. It played really cool. It could do all these stupid things that none of my other guitars could do. And it looked really rad too. It looked cool. So I regret that one. The one I don't regret, ironically, is I traded my Rickenbacker 360 for a vintage orange 212 cab. And
cool.
That one I'm still okay with, because I didn't play the Rickenbacker, and the orange is so weird. It's a vertical 212.
Cool.
I had to email Orange and find out it was pristine clean. It even had the cover. It's from like the early 70s. It's got 68 orange labeled cream backs in it. Like,
totally worth it.
It's totally worth it. And I play it like almost every day. And the Rickenbacker,
cool.
I thought it was gorgeous, and I looked at it and I'd play it and be like, not for me. I really bought it because I liked how it looked, you know?
Yeah.
So those are the 2 that I've let go.
I like it. I've let go a lot more. I couldn't even remember them, but that's kind of my thing. Do you do the 1 in 1 out thing? I haven't really bought a guitar in a long time. The only guitars that I've acquired like in the last probably 10 years or so, except for a Harmony H44, has been trades with friends. Like I make them a resonator and they make me Josh Williams, Seth Lee Jones, hybrid, it's that sort of stuff. So those guitars are, those are the keepers. Like, those are my buddies, and like, it's not just an
100%.
instrument. So, yeah, so they've all kind of ruined me to buying guitars, online. Just like, man, when you get a guitar from those guys, it's just a special thing, and that's what I'm sticking with.
So when you do that, do you tell them like, hey, I want these specs, or do you let them rock with it? Just see what happens.
It's both. It's depending on the vibe. And what's interesting, it's really informative to go through that process because, like I'm the same way. If it's a guitar that I pick things, I'll be like, man, that red is killer. Let's go with red. And then a week later, it's like, man, I hate to be that guy, but black is really, and so it definitely gives you like an appreciation of like the customer experience when you become the customer. And so it's part of the fun.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mavis Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my talkie?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. Yeah. I've done it both ways. I've ordered things to be exactly what I want and agonized over the color and all that stuff. And I've talked about this on the show a few times, but I've done it twice where I just told the builder, hey, I like this body shape. Maybe talk about scale length or something if there's something particular I'm after, and then I'm just like,
Yeah.
just go with it. See what happens. And
Cool.
that is as close to Christmas morning as you can get as an adult, because you don't know what's showing up. It's so awesome. And if you can find a builder that you can trust to do that, I think that's an experience everyone should try to have if they're into that
How
stuff.
do you appreciate those instruments compared to the ones that you spec'd out? Would they be like equal in appreciation, or do you prefer having one that's spec'd out like you intended your brain?
I don't know. I don't think it really. It's a good question. I've never really thought about it that way. I think what I appreciate is the thought and time that people put into, like, oh, okay, what do I know about Blake? And how can I make this something that he's really into? So it's not really. I don't think I appreciate more than the other because the work is equal. But I do appreciate the thought process of the homies that built the thing, because they had to do a little extra digging. So that's probably the way.
Do you like when you're playing,
I hadn't thought about it.
When you're playing it, do you get in your head ever about the specs of it? Like, oh, I should have went with, or I should have told him, scale length, not width, or are you just playing it?
No, I'm just playing it. No, I don't think about it at all. Yeah.
It's
in fact,
an interesting thing.
I tend to like look at it. I think now that I'm really thinking about this, I might appreciate it more when I look at it. And they both came out so awesome. One's my millimetric, and the other is my B.A. Ferguson, and they both came out so awesome. I guess if they had came out less killer, then maybe I'd be like, oh, I should have told him something. But they both are so incredible that I'm like, I have no regrets. Like, I'm good.
I think with like you were saying about the thought of like thinking about you during the build process and being like, man, what would he be into? And then also kind of seeing what the builder's into too. If someone's like, customers will be like, for us, build what you want to build. And then it's kind of like, okay, let's go. Here's this idea that I've been shelving for a while, and those creative juices start going. But it's kind of an interesting like exchange of thought there, where it's like the customer approaches a builder with his trust and appreciation of what the builder does, and the builder contributes his thought and appreciation for that trust. And now you have this instrument, like we were talking earlier about emotion, and this instrument is built purely on emotion, right? There's no numbers involved. There's no demands involved. It's just you're thinking about a human being, and that human being is reciprocating it in this instrument. I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. How, as a builder, I'm sure you've had, obviously some pretty incredible experiences with some pretty interesting customers, but it's a unique situation to be making musical instruments, because you're making a piece of art for then somebody to go and make a piece of art with. And I don't know if necessarily, and maybe this is totally wrong, but I don't know if paintbrush makers quite get the same feeling or rush from the tools that they're making. Whereas musical instrument, you get to oftentimes sit back and like, wow, they took this hunk of metal that I formed in my shop and formed something that is impacting people emotionally. Does that weigh on you at all, or do you like that, or does it get a little heavy, or am I just overthinking things like I like to?
That is 100% the reason why I make instruments. Like that feeling. I've said this before. Is like I don't know what the word to describe that feeling is, and that's kind of what I'm chasing. When I get an instrument and I deliver it to someone in person, or I hear somebody playing it, it's it's an extraordinary experience, because you're exactly
Mhm.
right. It's not something that anyone else gets to have. I know that, like, if you're, not to knock makers of other things, but it is just incredibly unique. If it is a painting, people are looking at it and admiring it, but you don't get to participate in it. It's not, a person isn't, you don't get to see it happen in real time. I might see
Right.
this painting and be inspired by it, and then go and pursue this because it's moved me, but you don't get to see it in that moment. And watching someone play on stage, you know their instrument that they told you was it that inspired this song, and then you're watching everyone sing the lyrics to it. It's like, whoa. Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps like
Yeah.
thinking about it, because it is like this tremendous thing. And at Fretboard Summit 2 years ago, Ken Parker did a talk, and he started the talk off by saying music is the most important thing in the world. And that's what he went on to describe, is like, there is no other experience between human beings like music. And if you are the tool maker of that, like, what a responsibility, what, like, an experience to have. So
It's a really weirdly cool side to be on that I think a lot of us, when we got into it, didn't really think about. But even to the fact, I routinely have to go and, like, it's I don't know, routinely is probably the wrong word, but a few times a year, I'll go into the that's stupid. I hate those things. You see that thumb that just came up?
I just
That's
saw
a
a
new
little
update.
something.
It's a new update that just happened in the Max, and it ruins conversations because it thinks that I accidentally did a thumbs up while scratching my arm, and it thinks that I
This is completely unnecessary.
I haven't figured out how to
I
turn
have
that
my
off
own
yet.
thumbs,
Like,
Apple. I'll use my own
yeah,
thumbs.
thank you. It's not what I need. Yeah. Good thing we weren't talking about, like, crippling addiction or anxiety or something
Yeah,
like that.
right,
That would have been
exactly.
awkward.
Thumbs up.
But what I was saying is, there's been a few moments, and last night was one where I'll get a message from somebody that I really respect as a musician, asking me about my opinions on a piece of gear or strings or whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm helping a guy spec out some builds right now. I'm like, man, I've been listening to you for years. Like, you're part of, like, not trying to fanboy too much, but, like, you're part
Yeah.
of the reason that I'm doing this right now. And here we are having this
Absolutely.
conversation about things. It's not something I expected when I decided to start a podcast. It's been really weird.
Yeah.
But
And
good.
then,
The good kind
yeah,
of weird.
but yeah, absolutely. And like, so wonderful that, like, we all get into things for different reasons, and then it kind of reveals itself as we go on, what, like, you know, what the good stuff is underneath it. And to have moments like that is just awesome.
Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot. We've talked a lot through all these episodes about the build process and the more esoteric ideas maybe sometimes behind doing these things. But just kind of following you for as long as I have, you're into a lot of stuff that isn't all music all the time. You seem to be a
Yeah.
man who likes a lot of things. Like, what other
Yeah.
things do you get into? What drives you?
Yeah. And recently, it's funny you mentioned that, because, like, it was probably just in the last, like, 4 years or so, 3, 4 years, where I've become, like, I've just accepted that. I've just accepted that that's who I am, because people be like, man, now you're into this. And, like, you go, like, I just go really hard at stuff. Um, and yeah, like, it's like, cycling used to be, like, my obsession. I used to spend 20 hours a week on a bicycle and did a bunch of long tours. And then during COVID, um, or right before COVID, I started up jujitsu, and then fishing shortly after. And so now jujitsu and fishing are, like, my two my two things, salmon and steelhead and musky fly fishing. And so I think it with anything, it's like, why do something mediocre? Why I just get obsessed with things. I'm going to take it all the way to its conclusion. And you learn a bunch of stuff. You meet a bunch of new people that way. And I think it's awesome, man. You just get to like have experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, jujitsu and fishing, those are the two things now.
The fishing is interesting because I don't know that much about jujitsu. I know that I went to a gym one time and got choked out by a guy that was 50 pounds lighter than me.
Yeah.
And that was rather
It's happened to
humbling.
me a ton of times. Yeah.
They're like, put you with him. I'm like, all right, here we go. I don't know about oh wow, I'm a pretzel. This happened rather quickly.
Exactly.
But I feel like with the fly fishing aspect specifically, not necessarily just dipping your rod in and chilling. And not that there's anything wrong with that either. But there's techniques to both of these things and things you gotta think about kind of actively. Do you find some crossover mentally? Do you get into a similar state in these things, or is it totally
absolutely
unrelated?
Yeah, no, for me it's all about that flow state. I that feeling that I kind of chase and all of that stuff is that feeling of forgetting to eat because you're just been immersed in that experience. And in both of those situations with jiu-jitsu and also with fly fishing, it is that it's a constant attention. You can't not be present. Whether it's jiu-jitsu and like you're trying to figure out what they're trying to do so that you can try to stay 2 steps ahead while also misleading them, while also not trying to, not getting choked out or getting your arm broken. Like, you have to be there. You have to be there right now. You can't be anywhere else. 100% of your effort has to be in that moment, which is also a skill, but it kind of just forces you to be there. And with fly fishing in particular, it's very much like that too, is because a lot of it has to do with line control. How is the current affecting the line? What's affecting your fly? You have to be there. You have to be paying attention. And it's like, you're how you cast, and then watching the line on like the water and how it's doing that. Do I mend? How's my rod tip? What am I feeling? Am I feeling the bottom? And then again, and now and then that process begins again, is you have to stay present. And then all of a sudden it's 7 o'clock and you've been on the water for 10 hours and got to participate in something pretty amazing. And so it's really that about that feeling, just kind of that like all consumed flow state. So
I think that it's more important. I don't know if it's more important. It seems more important to me to be able to get into those places mentally. I sound like an old man, but in this day and age, back in the day, pre-cell phone era, everybody was more in the moment. You might be kind of daydreaming or whatever, but you didn't have a choice but to be where you were at that moment. And it seems kind of weird to long for those times of boredom, but like I remember just being in places as a kid that I didn't really want to be, waiting on my mom to get her hair done or something, and I'm just like, well, I'm here. But I remember all those times so clearly. Like I remember like what the wood looked like in the place, and I remember what the the magazines that were on the shelf and what was on the TV and how it felt and how it looked. And these days, if I was waiting in an office, I'm not going to tell you any of that stuff because I'll probably be answering comments or something. And I don't know that that's necessarily better for us as humans. So being able to disconnect and be fully into anything, I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I know that, like what you said, like it might be daydreaming, it's not very constructive to be like, oh, those were the days when we all paid attention to everything and we're human beings and, we were better people and now everything sucks. Like that's not entirely true. I remember reading in Walden, Henry David Thoreau was talking about how people were reading newspapers on trains, fully absorbed by what happened on the other side of the world 2 days ago, and why not be here on a train talking to other humans? And so it's kind of always been part of like this human thing, this distraction, and with phones, it's technology, it's just kind of all present. But I think it's a skill to learn that mindfulness of like, when has my attention been taken away from something? We just kind of get wrapped up in things, and finding those experiences, whether it's, jujitsu, fishing, a really great conversation with a friend, those things that force you to be like here now. It's so much more rare probably. And that's why it's so valuable. If I can get out on a river and just be here, it's like, man, that's something special, because we're kind of always trying to be everywhere at once now.
That's true. Yeah, it's for me, that's where the lifting comes in. Like if you're trying to beat yourself at a particular thing, and you've got a few 100 pounds on top of you, you don't really get it. It's not the same as jujitsu, because no one's trying to choke you out, but you really don't have a choice but to pay 100% attention, or you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah,
you have to.
I think it's exactly the same like jujitsu. Yeah, absolutely. It's how is my tension? Am I squeezing that bar into my back? Am I retracting this or my knees? You gotta be fully mindful that whole time, and okay, some people might just see it as sitting down and standing up, but it's that experience of it, man. It's the same deal.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
Ready for a head-bangingly good time? Dive into the world of heavy metal with the Brutally Delicious podcast. Here, we don't just talk music. We welcome you into our heavy metal family. Join us for candid chats with legends and rising stars. We go beyond the typical interviews, exploring raw emotions and the life-altering impact of heavy metal. So whether you're a diehard metalhead or just curious, join our family and let the headbanging begin with the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Oh,
we froze again, but I think I heard most of that.
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, gotta love technology. But actually, that does lead into something else, because we were talking, you said, I don't think it's constructive to, be like, those were the days and everything sucks now. Like, I genuinely don't even think that's true. When I said, like, we were more in the moment, yeah, that's all true, but we couldn't do things like what we're doing now. I wouldn't have met hundreds and hundreds of people, and like this. I think this is a net positive. Ultimately, the connection that we have.
I agree.
Some people view it as a negative. I don't think that it is. I know for me, I have definitely changed for the better based on the conversations I've gotten to have via the internet. I have had my brain changed in a positive way by people I never otherwise would have met. And so
Absolutely.
maybe that's unique to me, but I don't think that it is. I think that our connectivity will eventually be a good thing overall. Maybe
Yeah.
that's
I
a little
I think
rosier
no,
than some
I
people
think
believe, but
yeah, I think it's a great point. And like you said, like it might be your experience, but I think what that shows is like saying something about how like technology is, a certain thing is like kind of ignoring our own responsibility, right? Is like I can choose to use it in a way that I can have a great conversation with my buddy Blake, or I can use it just to stare and scroll and, burn 3 hours of my time a day. That's not really technology's deal. That's your deal. You got to figure that out,
right.
and it's an incredible tool. So, it can be misused, but it could also, like you said, is like, man, also change people in ways that they couldn't be otherwise because they're connected with other humans they couldn't before.
Yeah, and it's I mean, even on the more like selfish side, you and me and not most of the people we know in this weird niche that we're in wouldn't have our businesses, wouldn't be able to do
Yeah,
this if it wasn't for that
absolutely.
technology and that connection. We wouldn't. I mean, or if we did, it would look significantly different. I know getting
Yeah.
started would have been significantly more difficult.
Oh gosh,
Reaching
yeah.
people, it would have been insane. Can you imagine trying to grow your company to a 6-person team without the reach that's been afforded via social? That would have been a little bit
Yeah,
challenging.
exactly. Absolutely, 100%. Lots of road time. And
So
like going to dealers, like we don't use dealers. If the internet wasn't a thing, if that technology wasn't a thing, I'd have to go to stores and have them be the ones that are getting the instruments to people. But now, like, I can have the experience of building instruments for people myself. Technology's pretty cool, so
yeah.
yeah, it's just how you use it.
So this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I'm curious because you are a guy that's into so many
Ooh, I
things,
like
and like
sidebars.
me,
Yeah.
when you do something, yeah, you really do them. But what is there a typical day for Matt? Do you have what you could consider a typical day, or does it bounce all over the place?
I mean, there is like a typical day. What happens like during that work time changes probably every 15 minutes. you know, um, just because there's so many plates spinning. It's it's production stuff. And when you hear the word production, you think like doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, but it's just constant problem solving. There is no end to that where it's like everything just works out perfectly and this is the perfect jig for whatever. There's always problems to solve. And then all the logistics of um, communicating with customers, employees, ordering things. Like how many different parts go into a guitar? It's just there's so many, and then you have to have multiple suppliers just to make sure that you have like redundancy for like if someone's low in stock, which really wasn't a thing until 2 years or so after COVID, where it was like, oh, it's pretty hard to get stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
so there's more communication. So I'm kind of running around spinning those plates, um, which is probably why I like those flow state experiences where I can just do
Sure.
this one thing for an hour and a half and get beat up by my buddies and just be in that moment. But I do like in some regards, I also like running around spinning the plates. I kind of like having that randomness. So, but yeah, like at the shop we work 410s. I usually end up doing a Friday or something, but I'm not a workaholic. because I like other stuff. I've got a family now
Mm-hmm.
too, and you know, so I have a pretty set schedule at work. Um, it's been a little bit different because of some certain projects that we've been working on. Um, so sometimes you just got to go, and give it everything you got. But a lot of time, like I'm just a believer in the marathon, not a sprint thing. It's just small, tiny steps over a longer period of time than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
There really is no like, and talking to like newer guitar makers when they're looking for tips and stuff is like, hey, I'm thinking about ditching my day job to, give a go at my dream. And, what are your tips? And I'm like, put yourself out of a job. Don't ditch your job. The
Mm-hmm.
world spins at the speed that it spins. You have no control over it. And right now, no one gives a crap about you. It's just a reality of it, right? So chip away at it. If you can't chip away at it while you're doing something else, chances are you're not obsessed enough with it to really make it a thing. That's also just part of the reality. It's okay to want to do things as a hobby, it doesn't,
100%.
I think a lot of times people have this idea that being a professional something is exactly like it being a hobby, and it's not. It's completely different, and so just chipping away at things is the way to get stuff done. And so I'm not a 60-hour a week guy by any means.
I-
Um,
I'm really glad you said that point about the full-time thing, because the advice that I've given people is very similar. Like, don't like I did 3 full-time jobs for like 3.5 years ish to try to make this
ugh,
work. And
yeah,
um I eventually had realistically, if I could have stuck it out a little bit longer, I probably should have maintained the main full-time job there for a little while. But I
yeah.
literally got to a point where I'm like, I can't
You
do
just
all
can't.
this anymore.
You can't. Yep.
But I was obsessed enough to like, I think I can delete this steady stream of income,
Yeah.
and take this gamble on myself, because it has been working for a while now. Um, but I think the reality is most people shouldn't just cut bait and jump. Some people that works
Right.
for, and they need their feet held to the fire that way. But I think most
Yeah.
people probably shouldn't do that. It causes more stress.
Yeah.
You're because then you're like freaking out when orders don't come in or whatever. And I get it, and that doesn't necessarily change too much if orders ever do stop coming in. But getting
Yeah.
yourself established and giving yourself that runway is really, really beneficial, and it doesn't make you any less
Absolutely.
of a maker or a doer, or like whatever your thing is that you're trying to do. You're not less of that because you're doing it not full time. You know, uh,
Yeah,
it
absolutely. And I think with what like we do, it's such an interesting business in the world of business, right? Is like who your customers are is something that you had to learn over time, right? Who's into this thing, and it's the same thing with us. And that's not something that you learn day one.
right.
It doesn't matter if you walked into your boss's office and told him, what you thought about him and then left. You don't know anything. And the only way to learn is through experience. Is like you don't know how to do any of this. And like you said, like giving yourself a runway to it's an extended period of time that you can survive to learn things as you go to get a better idea so that when you do have to support yourself or a family, um, you're not you know you're not just wading in the ocean without a life raft. It's like there's a smart way of going about it. It's not a romantic notion to just jump ship and go for something. um, and if you're obsessed with something, I'm glad you used that word, because to make stuff like this your day job, you have to be obsessed with it. You have to be
Mhm.
obsessed with it. It's like you said, is like there's too much suffering involved. There's too much discomfort involved that if you are not living, breathing, can't stop your brain thinking about it, it may not be for you to do it full time. And that is, like you said, totally okay. There isn't a hierarchy here.
Mhm.
It's just different stuff.
I know plenty of people who are excellent luthiers that are not doing it full time, and I don't look at the things that they craft as less than because they're not doing it full time. It makes no difference ultimately, at least not to me, and I don't think it does to anybody who puts the time in to support them, to support these builders or to go with it. Nobody's less of a thing because they're not doing it full time, and I just think that's I don't know where that
100%.
conception comes in. I definitely had that thought
Yeah.
as a younger person, but it's illogical. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know
Agreed.
where that comes from.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah.
Well, Matt, we're getting close to the end of the podcast. We've done it. I can't believe that really flies. It really flies by when you get on the horn with me. It really goes fast. We should do it more often.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, I literally just saw the timer too. I saw 53 minutes in. I was like, how did that happen? So, no, man, good conversations. I love it.
Well, it's great. Well, we've talked about pizza multiple times, but I think some a different food-based question is probably appropriate to wrap
Okay.
this whole thing up on. So, in your neck of the woods, what is, and this is probably a little bit hard to do because there's a lot of good food everywhere these days, but if you were going to go right now to whatever your favorite restaurant is or whatever you're craving the most right now, where is it? What is it?
Big O's Barbecue here in Saginaw. Big O's Barbecue. Omar started Big O's in 2020. So he started his restaurant year of COVID. And I was just pleading. I was pleading to the gods to get a burger place or barbecue in Saginaw because we didn't have either of those. And then Big O started, but then it was COVID. So during COVID, in my brain, I rationalized supporting my local businesses by getting delivery every single day. I ate like from restaurants like every single day during COVID because I was just terrified that these places would go out. And like buying a sandwich from somebody once a month is not going to help them, but I just wanted them to stay. So I went to Big O's like once or twice a week during COVID and picked up my food. And then after the COVID stuff, I'm still there once a week. I absolutely love it. That's kind of like that's kind of my ritual. 2-meat dinner. Their swag sauce is unbelievable. I swear you're going to see it in stores one day. I keep telling them, I'm like, the store is great, the barbecue is awesome, but if you sell this swag sauce, man, like it's unreal. So that's my spot. Oh yeah.
What's the flavor like in the swag sauce? You got me curious. What is it? What's the swag sauce all about?
I think it's a mustard based sauce, and it's one of those things where they just nailed the balance of all those things. Like when you have a great beer that's been sitting for 4 years compared to the same one that's new, is like the new one is kind of choppy. You can taste all the elements of it, but the older stuff, it's all kind of like simmered in there, and that's that sauce. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on in there because it's just like blended so well. So yeah, swag sauce at Big O's.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Shout out Big O's. That sounds like a place I need to visit. That sounds fantastic.
Oh heck yeah, let's go, buddy.
I'm glad I asked that question. Now I'm ready for barbecue. Oh
Same.
Boy, here we go. Well, Matt, thank you so much for hanging out. We'll get into some shenanigans over on Patreon. Does that work for you?
Cool. Yeah, man. Let's do it.
All right, everybody. For Matt, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did. And if you have not gone back and listened to Matt's previous episodes on this podcast, I highly suggest that you do that. They are very good conversations as well. And I think it all makes more sense in context if you go ahead and listen to all those pretty close together. And if you've already done that and you want more conversation, and again, a sneak peek into some upcoming Mule stuff, head over to patreon.com/tonemob, where for $5 a month, you will get access to that. I really appreciate you folks. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. Please, please, please share these things with people. Share them with a friend. Share them with anybody you think might be into it. It really, really does move the needle in a dramatic way. Talk about the show. Talk about it in forums. Talk about it wherever you happen to do your guitarings and your nerdings out. I would appreciate that so much. Thank you all for the many, many years you've been with me, reflecting on all this with the history of how Matt's company has evolved and me thinking about my own journey. It's been really wild to see. So thank you all for the support. Please go check out what Matt is doing. The links to all that is, of course, in the description. And don't forget, there is the Tone Mob YouTube channel where the video version of this episode will be coming out, and there are others just waiting for you. So check that out if you haven't yet. I really appreciate it if you did. And thank you all for everything. I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Ready for a head-bangingly good time? Dive into the world of heavy metal with the Brutally Delicious podcast. Here, we don't just talk music. We welcome you into our heavy metal family. Join us for candid chats with legends and rising stars. We go beyond the typical interviews, exploring raw emotions and the life-altering impact of heavy metal. So whether you're a diehard metalhead or just curious, join our family and let the headbanging begin with the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.